is so unfair.
Yeah, you have every single time.
I never do. It's always just...
You're doing it right now.
Oh, look. It's fine.
Hold attention for you, mate. Hello and welcome to the EV Café. As some of you all know, we celebrated the World EV Day last week, and it was fantastic to see all the support. But it got us five thinking, what will the future hold if we face a skills shortage in our industry for the years to come? Therefore, today's topic, you might have guessed it, every day is a school day, where we will be looking at how we can future-proof our industry and close the skills gaps by exploring ways we can best inspire and train our young people to install, service, and maintain our EV industry. After all, they will be the ones tasked to create solutions today and tomorrow to fight climate change.
Easy for you to say.
So what's on the menu today? First up, we are delighted to welcome back the founder of the World EV Day, Ade Thomas, to tell us how last week all went. Then we will hear from our very own news anchor lady. No, it's not Paul Kirby, it's Sarah Sloman. Jim Blair will follow and tell us a bit more about the training programs in the automotive industry and how Arnold Clark have just won a national training award as well. Then we will also hear from Pat Skelly, or the CEO of ProGreen or Prohire, who will be telling us what they are doing for apprentices and training as well. As always, after every guest speaker, we will turn to the mailroom section of the show, where you as the audience will get a chance to ask questions in the Q&A tab or live on air. So if you have questions already, please get them in there now. Best question wins an EV Cafe mug, and winners will be decided by John Curtis at the end. So anyway, got on to the introduction. So as most of you will know, my name is Johnny Berry. I am, in my day job, I am Head of Decarbonisation for Hitachi Capital Vehicle Solutions. And for EV Cafe, I am moderator or chief barista for today's session. And although you will rightfully say that I will always look calm and collected on these shows, the reality is I am flapping underneath to ensure a smooth delivery of the show, but also keeping this lovely EV Cafe crew in check, otherwise known as the Avengers.
Who wrote that?
So the Avengers, they are integral to this show and form the complete team for the EV Cafe. But who are they, you might ask? And what was their pledge for the World EV Day last week? Let's start with the mailboy. He's called the mailboy because he looks after the mailroom section of the show. And he keeps heckling me at the moment. So, hello, Mr. Curtis.
Hello, darlings. Yes, hello. I'm John Curtis. I'm head of marketing for Swarco. I'm head of communications for Charge Place Scotland. And I am also the main stage host for Grand Designs Live on the 7th of October at the Birmingham NEC, where we will champion electric vehicles. Come on. Anyway, I'm here to look after the mailroom. So if you have questions, if you can pop them in the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen, and we'll pick them up as we go through and talk to people and get their answers. Thank you, darlings. Love you much.
Let's go to our anchor lady, Sarah Sloman. What was your pledge?
Yeah, did we get John's pledge? I know on your video you said you were going to...
No, so my pledge in the drive at the moment, tell no one, but there are 2 diesel cars. Not mine, but part of the family. They gone. So this year, they gone.
Fantastic. Well, I think that's a very worthy pledge. I am Sarah Sloman, Head of Future Mobility Partnerships at Electronics and Hubster, which I'm very proud to be as my day job. And then in the evenings, we devote all this time to all of these wonderful people because we are trying to grow the EV Cafe community to make sure that we can bring you fun, entertainment, but crucially, impartial advice, knowledge and experience from us as industry experts. So my pledge, though, was a bit of a weird one because I've been thinking carefully about what happens if we swap out every internal combustion engine with an electric vehicle. And whilst that's great for the economy, it's also not the best for decarbonisation of the planet. So my pledge was that I would actually use my EV a lot less and then keep that power in the battery for another day when I really need it. And that does help that I'm an impassioned cyclist. So I just am looking forward to next year, between now and next year's World EV Day, where I can cycle as much as I can, and perhaps I'll even keep a tally and let you all know how many EV miles I saved.
Brilliant. Thanks, Sarah. If any of our guests uses acronyms today, then they will be stopped by this man, Mr. Kirby.
I hate the fact that I always have to follow one of the most eloquent people I've ever met, and you do it every time to me. And now
You know I do it on purpose.
Anyway, so in comparison to the lovely Sarah Sloman, I am an ineloquent, uneducated muppet. However, my pledge, so there you go. My pledge that I made was to help accelerate the transition to electric commercial vehicles. And I, with Sarah, agree that actually just taking diesel engines and switching them to electric is not necessarily the best way to go. And so it is, it's a blank sheet of a paper approach. Easy for me to say. And that, fortunately, is also my day job now. So as owner of EV Essentials, my role is to help businesses either making products to put into the industry or looking to adopt electric vehicles to make that transition. So hopefully my job and my pledge kind of work together and I get to have lots of fun doing it. And also, of course, playing a part on the EV Café, which is definitely the highlight of my very life.
Yeah, that's what we're doing today. You know that, don't you? That's why we're here.
Well, we.
Brilliant. Thanks, Paul. And finally, a man you might not have heard of before.
Yeah,
But don't worry, Google is a very useful tool.
So Sam, a very useful tool.
He's the only tool left in the vehicle overnight.
Google's pretty good as well.
Are you finished? Is that it? You done? All right. Thank you. Hello, everybody. Thank you for giving me such an easy act to follow as well, by the way. That's you. That was a dig to you, Paul. Yeah. My name is Sam Clark. In my day job, I am the Chief Vehicle Officer for GridServe. My pledge was to install another charger at my house, but also all the other My Energy kit that I have. You can't see it, but it's behind me on the shelf, into my house. So I got a tracking number notification today to say that my solar panels are arriving tomorrow. Ooh. So I cannot wait to actually deliver my pledge, which is putting solar on the roof and then use that energy to heat my water and charge my car. So I'm doing it myself. I'm building it myself. I'm doing it bit by bit. So I'm learning as I go along. So that's my first pledge. And my second one is to try and provide charging infrastructure for everybody everywhere in the whole country. I'm not doing it on my own, obviously, but we're doing that too. So fingers crossed. And I'll shut up now.
Thanks, Sam. And that's the EV Café team. But before we do anything, I just want to run by the digital housekeeping, especially for any newcomers of the show. First up, just want to say your involvement is really important to us. So please do use the Q&A tab to ask us questions and our guest questions. We will answer them during the mailroom section of the show, which, as I say, takes place after each guest speaker and is hosted by Mr. John Curtis. If you do want to come off mute, then we welcome that and come and talk to us, then just raise the virtual hand button. Just press that button during the mailroom section of the show. And the Speaker of the House, who is actually Paul Kirby, will address you. For anyone on camera, if you want to talk, then please raise your hand like Paul just did, as if you were at school, because we are at school today, as we may have up to 9 people on the screen at any one time. So it just avoids crossing over each other. But now let's get on with the show. Let's get on with the class. Sarah, I want to start with you. I've noticed that our LinkedIn page is at how many numbers now? It's like 1,981 members. How can we put a shameless sales plug here? How can we push that to see hit the 2K mark?
It's absolutely not a shameless sales plug because it's not a sales plug. This is about when we applied last year for the Green Fleet Awards, and I went back through your application and saw that in October last year we had 500 followers on our group page, and then we set ourselves a little target that by today, inspired by World EV Day, that today we would try to have 2,000. And when I checked earlier, we were at 1,983. So we were painfully close. And so I think it's
1,990 now.
Oh my goodness. And so I'm going to watch it. And whoever ends up being the 2,000th one, we will give them a special shout out and they might even get a free gift. So if anybody can share our page via your own channels, that'd be fantastic, because just to remind you all that this is about growing our community. It's about swapping information and exchanging our experiences, and not about selling anything. This is why we take our work hats off. We bring our experience from our employers, but we're not here to promote anything or sell anything. So this isn't the soapbox, it isn't the sales pitch. It's just a plea to help us grow this community, because people love it, and it's an opportunity for you as well to share your experiences. So anything you can do to help us boost those numbers, we will be so grateful.
Is there a link we can put on the chat, perhaps?
I will. I'll do that right now.
Amazing. So everyone, please do look out for the chat link, and let's get over 2,000 during this episode. It'd be amazing.
So is that another mug giveaway then, is it?
Yeah.
Potentially.
Well,
Share
no,
it
because
in
then
advance
everybody
with
will
a
wait
mug.
to be the 2000th.
I don't know if you can tell, actually. I don't know if you can
Yeah,
tell.
I don't think you can.
No, what we'll do is if you share the page, we'll put you in a raffle and you can win a mug, an EV Café mug. I'm going to give loads away this session, I've got a feeling.
That's two already.
John, no more mug giveaways, but we have some amazing patrons and sponsors now. I guess it might be worth just acknowledging them and telling the audience why they're so important to us, really.
Absolutely. So sponsors, partners, supporters, we've got them all, and we are blessed, absolutely lucky as heck to have My Energy, who provides so much support. Kate Tyrrell, Jordan and the team are utterly amazeballs. She would use a different phrase, wouldn't you, Kate? And they bring support to us in terms of our charging infrastructure. So they provide the renewable energy and systems and charge points that go into businesses and properties so that you can charge your EVs and do so with that wonderful renewable energy. We're also blessed to have Adam Fletcher and Geotab on board with us, and they don't do data. They provide insights, they provide learning on the EV journey. So what do EVs do? What can they do for you? Specifically looking at your data to make the right decisions. But we have another special little group, our Patreons, and our Patreons get a pretty good deal. And here's what they get. They get access to a secret, and I'm not even joking, secret WhatsApp group. So we spend half of our lives on this WhatsApp group talking about EVs, EV infrastructure, what's going on. We share the dirt on everything that goes on in Sarah's life. And it is quite simply staggering. It is the best 20 quid you can spend. So fire along to Patreon, as have many others. And let's just let you know who's in on the conversation. Lorna McAteer, Neil Durno, Paul Barnfather, Darren Anvener, Roger Atkins. Yes, that Roger Atkins. Yeah. Stuart big hat or helmet or something. Anyway, right. Stuart Middleton, Elmtronics, love them, hug them, squeeze them. Anil Kumar Mehta and Compared Leasing. Tell you what, we get in on the goss. You can be there too. So Patreon, put in Patreon into Google and EV Café. Come join us. We'll send you the WhatsApp link, and you too can be an Avenger. I thank you all.
Very good. Very good.
Brilliant. I mean, contrary to popular belief, we don't just come up with an agenda a few days before and then wing it at 12 o'clock on a Wednesday afternoon. We do our homework. We ensure that we try to put as a great show as we can as possible that's going to help our audience. And I know, Sarah, you've done some more in particular, actually, I've noticed. Do you want to share some of the findings that you've had in the last?
Yeah, thank you, Johnny. I'd love to, because ultimately this is about how did we get to be in this position and what inspired us to get into this industry. And I think it's really important to track that back. And so I've done nothing the last few weeks but talk to people of all ages and seniorities to just try and find out what brought them to that place. And do you know what? It always is the same answer in the end. The more you dig, the more it finds out that somebody somewhere when they were a kid showed them something that inspired them. And then that led on to presents and gifts and manual experiences that then drew them into it, thinking what they could be when they grow up. And it's so cliche and yet so true. And I'd say I've spoken to 30 plus people, and that has been the case every single time. Occasionally somebody's had a major U-turn and been inspired by something, a trigger happened in their life and they changed lanes. But the majority of people is about having an opportunity to train and learn and result in an employer seeing a talent in them and growing that talent. And it's not just going to happen overnight. So I feel like if we're trying to phase out by 2030 and bringing forward, hopefully, the decarbonisation target from 2050 forward, again, we're never going to make it unless we actually do more to help the younger generation be inspired. And so that is what this is all about. And World EV Day couldn't have come at a better time. We're back to school, it's September. So I thought this would be a really fun way. And I might not wear this stupid tie the whole time, but it does demonstrate that if you really put your mind to something, you can achieve it.
Excellent, thanks, Sarah. Now it's time to welcome our first guest speaker on for today's show. He's no stranger to the EV Café, nor the EV world. He's a very good friend of us and the cafe, and probably yours too, and the founder of the World EV Day. So a very warm welcome back onto the EV Café, Mr. Ade Thomas. We are all very excited to hear how last week went for you, and of course the special day. So welcome to the EV Café, Ade.
Hi there, Johnny. Hi there, Sarah, Sam, John, Paul. Very, very pleased to be back. Just starting my video now. So yeah, delighted to be back. Thanks very much indeed for having me.
Well, thank you for coming. We've just hit 2,000. That's it. 2,000 is in the bag.
Now it's time for 3,000
next.
3,000.
That's the power of World EV Day for you.
It is. So that's right. Thank you so much and welcome. And you accepted this invitation quite last minute, so I'm so grateful. Oh, Johnny's got a gift. That's going to go somewhere.
I'll start packaging this up now, shall I?
John's in the mailroom, so.
So anyway,
Ade.
should we ask Ade some questions?
Bring it. So how did it go, Ade? How was World EV Day?
Well, how was it for you, John?
Utterly fabulous, because it made me stop and think. I have for a long time, 10 years plus, advocated electric vehicles. And then on World EV Day, I stopped and thought, hang on a minute, there's more that I can do. Doing it myself is not enough. Getting those in my life is what I should be doing to use EVs. And so I had conversations with my daughter, my son, my wife, all of whom have cars, and said, for goodness sake, what are we doing? We have 4 cars in our family, 1 EV, 3 diesel. That's got to stop. We have to do better. So it did a lot for me.
Good. Well, good to hear it. Yeah. Well, shall I dive in and give you a sense of what the day achieved and the kind of global coverage we had?
Please.
Yeah.
So obviously this is our second year, right? World EV Day. Last year really created an institution. I think that was just reaffirmed this year. I mean, it was, there's no overestimation to say it was a kind of stratospheric, off the scale global success. I mean, it was just an incredible array of things going on worldwide. It was just incredible, really. So I'll share a little presentation I've got with you to give you a sense of what happened and what was going on around the world. Can you see that? Can you see that presentation document with the
Yes, we can.
lovely ID3 on it?
Yep.
So, I mean, just to go back to last year, the campaign highlights for last year were, in year one, we're off the scale. I mean, the big headline figure top left there was that it achieved a global media reach of 1.9 billion across all the media that we hit. So that's a reach figure, which means that if the Telegraph runs a story and the Telegraph has an audience of 250,000, then you count that audience in that. But still, you know, that it was a huge stratospheric success last year. We don't yet have the figures for this year, but they're already showing that channels like Twitter gave us huge numbers of views into the hundreds of millions. So, you know, how did that happen? Well, you know, we started off last year with ABB as our headline partner. And I'm delighted to say that, you know, we worked with a whole bunch of you guys as well to bring in major partners to make this thing travel far and wide. So GridServe were a partner, you know, obviously EV Café were a partner, which is great. Paul, your previous employers, Vanarama, were a partner. And so by aggregating this, you know, this network of partners, we were able to seed this idea across some really influential channels and organizations. And that really helped to propel last year's World EV Day. From our side, at the center of things, you know, we defined the channels, the branding, the narrative. We got, you know, UK government involved as well. So, you know, we started to create some really, really powerful assets. And I think, you know, a good idea needs good timing, right? And the timing seemed to be amazing last year. You know, there wasn't a day dedicated to electric vehicles. When you have such an incredible array of partners involved, and the timing is right in a moment in history, which I think we need to really be aware of. This is a moment in history that we're all involved with, right? It's not just a moment in time where we're all trying to sell a bit of charging infrastructure or shift a few new electric vehicles. This is a moment in history powered at the top of the tree by climate change, and that's obviously creating some really seismic shifts. So when you have such a huge global stratospheric success, it can only really happen because you're tapping into some really, really powerful narratives. So I think that was what was going on. So that was where, you know, where we hit the ground at incredible pace last year, and then this year we, you know, it was just incredible. So I mean, you know, this is a scene from India. There was a grassroots event in India. You can't quite see, but all those people in white t-shirts are wearing World EV Day t-shirts in the background. You know, so that was a really amazing moment to me, you know, where, you know, this thing's traveled all across the world and people in India are getting involved with their electric scooters. So that's the grassroots level. Then, you know, to go through some really, really high level government engagement. So, you know, we got the attention of the White House. So this is a screen grab from Gina McCarthy, who's President Biden's climate advisor. So she did a video address specifically for World EV Day. So that, you know, that was pretty special. You know, to think you're getting, you know, one person away from President Biden, and President Biden has placed climate change at the top of his agenda, right? And there's a clear White House agenda around driving electrification now, which is superb. So from the White House to the floor of the House, this is another screen grab. This is Grant Shapps on the floor of the House of Commons talking about what the government's doing in electric vehicles, but he prefixes his speech talking about World EV Day. So, you know, when you've got the White House and the floor of the House, you know you're onto something. And then towards the end of the day, Boris got involved with tweeting about World EV Day and posting to LinkedIn about World EV Day. So that's where, you know, you think, okay, we've got the White House, the floor of the House, the Prime Minister, we've got grassroots events going on, you know, all around the world. We got Australia involved. It was quite something. You know, it was a very special moment. For me personally, it was even more special Christmas Day with my kids, and that's saying something. That was previously my favorite day of the year. Yeah, so I mean, I touched on that, you know, the partnerships and the strong brand that really helped to propel the day. And I mentioned some of the partners from year one. You can see your own organizations involved in that with those founding partners. We had great media partners this year. So Auto Trader in the UK were involved. We had Facebook, TikTok, and LinkedIn involved. The first time ever that Facebook, LinkedIn, and TikTok had ever been involved all together on a single project, which was quite something. And deploying our own channels. You know, I also look after Electric Drives, which has 250,000 followers. So we deployed our own channels as well. So it was a really exciting moment. And then looking forward to next year, we're looking towards action next year rather than just social media. So we're going to set up a leadership group to ask people, what are you doing to decarbonize that you'll announce next World EV Day? So that World EV Day is not just a social media moment, but is the culmination of a year of planning and activity around decarbonizing transport and the energy ecosystem. So that leadership group is something we're working on actively now, and we're really excited about deploying the day for decarbonisation next year, not just having a great day that we can celebrate, but a great day that delivers action that's taken place throughout the course of the year. Thanks very much. That's enough from me. I'll stop sharing that now, and yeah, I look forward to taking any questions from anybody.
There's never enough from you. I think there is a question, John.
Yeah, there is. Ade, if you could do something overnight as a single silver bullet to increase the number of EVs, what would it be?
I don't think anyone's talking about means-tested grants for people that can't afford electric cars. I mean, that's the single biggest thing that's blocking electric car take-up and ownership, isn't it? You know, most people do not spend upwards of 15, 20, 25, 30,000 pounds on a car. You know, that's completely crazy to most people. So, you know, no one's talking about, you know, means-tested grants for people that don't have the cash, and maybe, you know, opening up the second-hand market with some kind of sense of government incentives. You know, what underpins all of our involvement in electric vehicles is not shiny cars. You know, they are the symptom of the thing at the root of all this, which is climate change. I mean, it's the single biggest threat to our species. So, you know, governments really need to step up to the mark and deploy incredible amounts of resource to getting people in clean cars, right? So that's my answer to that question.
It's worth saying that in Scotland, where I'm from, we have the Energy Saving Trust who do interest-free loans over a 5-year period, up to £20,000 for used cars. So are there any other countries that offer that sort of support for EV purchase, either new or used?
I don't have any means testing, which I think is, you know, a really interesting approach to things anywhere in the world. Does anybody else know about means testing?
Well, I was just going to say that the government have announced, of course, Neil's mentioned it, but I was thinking about it, that the grant for home and workplace charging is changing or being taken away in putting in place, looking at rental sort of rental properties and people that don't have access to home charging. So I wonder maybe when that actually arrives in terms of bit of meat on the bones, a bit of flesh, whether that will become an application, means tested application kind of process. I mean, I don't know. I'm not aware of anything specifically, but it does make me think that they're focusing on people that aren't able to splash the cash.
Yeah. I mean, another answer to your question, John, is education. You know, huge amounts of education required to get people that are resistant to this crazy new world of electric vehicles. You know, it is an incredible shift for most people. People have been happy for 100 years with the previous form of combustion, right? And they just don't get it. And, you know, a lot of the conversations we have are just so far removed from ordinary people who are doing, you know, carrying on their lives and not engaging with the subject matter yet.
Absolutely. Sam?
Ade, you made a good point a minute ago about the fact that the shiny things on our driveway is only the end of the journey, and what really matters is the bit at the beginning. And I noticed I think it was your second slide on your website, you had a little, I've got it in my hand actually as well here, my little badge, which had the same
the climate
pattern. So yeah, the strip there. I just thought that might be worth a mention because it's only a very subtle thing on your website there, but it means a great deal in terms of the big picture. I thought it might be worth explaining that. Yeah,
so I mean those are the climate stripes. They are a visual representation of a warming planet. There you go. They were devised by a University of Reading climate scientist. You know, they are beautiful in their design simplicity, but they are very, very worrying in terms of what they visualize. They visualize, you know, something which to me is close to the end of our species as we know it if we don't decarbonize everything immediately. So that's what they visually represent, a warming world.
Yeah, and there was an interesting bit of news I saw just recently about the number of instances where we've tipped over 50 degrees Celsius at any point during the day, any day of the year, and it's progressively increasing every single year. I think we're in tens of times that's happening every year relative to previously.
I mean, I don't want to bring the conversation down. I mean, you know, because the great thing about the EV space is that it's one of the few spaces in sustainability where you have some really lovely shiny toys to do your marketing. Most other areas of sustainability, and I don't just work in electric cars, are pretty just relentlessly depressing with no shiny toys. But in the EV space, you know, you do have shiny toys to get people excited about the things they can do to solve the climate change problem.
It goes beyond that. Rhiannon Evans in the chat box has made a really interesting point. She says, I live in a terraced house and I don't have a driveway to install a charge point. And this is something I know in Dundee, where we have 60% of people live in flats, so they don't have access to off-street parking. And there are innovative solutions. I mean, you take Sam's GridServe approach, where you have essentially a petrol forecourt, but better because it's just for EVs, through to charging hubs, which are provided by local authorities in Falkirk and Dundee and so on. There are ways around this, as well as, you know, organizations like Connected Curb, who will put in low impact charging infrastructure into pavements. So there are ways, and I think part of what you said, Aidan, is most important is that education piece, that it's okay to believe that you can't charge an EV, but actually the reality is that there are solutions out there which are working in this country and many others.
Is it worth mentioning that you can approach a local council to get charge points fitted if you don't have access? So I'm understanding a couple of people have done this and just sort of mention to the local council, listen, we want to move electric cars, you know, can you electrify our street? And I think there is stuff that can be done. One guy was telling me yesterday, he approached his council and got a lamppost converted to a charge point. So I think that is possible also.
And shared charging, that's going to be another new exciting space, isn't it? Where people are, you know, via apps, going to be able to share their own charging facilities. At the EV Summit last 2 weeks ago, we had interesting conversation around, you know, urban hubs. I think that's going to be another exciting new space where some of the big forecourt companies are entering that space, the urban hub space. So that with fast charging, obviously, so that will open up that market as well.
There's a lot of EV charging innovation coming on. I mean, we had Fully Charged on the commercial vehicle area. We had Charge Ferry. So Charge Ferry have got about, I think it's 50 or 60 kilowatt battery in the back, and that can be downloaded into the vehicles that they visit, and they'll come and visit you. It's great solution for fleets that don't have home charging in particular.
And I'm looking forward to a grid serve coming to a location near me sometime soon. So we look forward to Sam's exciting news with huge levels of investment and new infrastructure application.
Yeah, it won't be long. It won't. Well, yeah, we've got a lot to do. But we've nearly hit 100 of the 179 electric highway locations already with upgraded kits. So that's good. So we're getting there. But you know, the charge ferries and the BPs and the Shells with their forecourts, everybody has to deliver something. It's impossible for us to do it on our own. You know, it's a collective industry effort, really.
Oxfordshire is doing some nice work with its park and charge scheme. So places, you know, parking facilities around Oxfordshire are getting nice new charging infrastructure at pace, which is great. Fastnet are coming to Oxfordshire with a big new park and ride facility next year. So it's lots of exciting stuff going on.
Got a question in the box, and it's from Adam Fletcher, Geotab, partner, if you know what I'm saying. So it's kind of important, this one. Paul, do you think that governments have got it right in terms of going after commercial vehicles over personal cars first? Could they have given the commercial world more time due to a lack of suitable vehicles and focused more on cars and given larger grants there? What do you think, Paolo?
Well, I'm not allowed to swear. So do I think governments have got it right in terms of going after commercial vehicles first? Well, I don't think they are going after commercial vehicles first. It was a comment actually that one of the presenters of Fully Charged mentioned, said, I'm surprised that commercial vehicles are not transitioning earlier because of obviously their impact on local air quality in particular. You know, towns and cities are, you know, full of vans and trucks driving around, and commercial vehicles, yeah, they aren't ready. And that's down to the OEMs. They've approached the car thing first. And there's a lot of money going out of government purse to cars. When you think of the benefit in kind, you know, costs that the government are not now taking, it is a significant amount of money that is going out of the government coffers. So no, I don't think enough is being done by government to support the commercial vehicle sector. I also don't think there is enough investment and push to actually get vehicles on the market from the van and truck. I mean, truck are working hard in a difficult environment. Vans, I think, could accelerate at a much quicker speed from an OEM perspective. So I think there's definitely more to do there.
Paul, wisdom as always. Johnny.
Yeah, hi. So I just want to say thanks, Ade. Amazing work. Real privilege to have you on the show again. It's a real privilege for us to be a partner of the World EV Day. So we're great work. Really commend you for that. I'd like to, before we go on to the next section of the show, I'd like to go back to that first question around the silver bullet. Pose this question to the rest of the class, our audience, our lovely audience that we have on the show today. So what do you think the silver bullet could be? Stick it in the chat box. But in the meantime, it's now time for the EV Café news round. So let's go to Sarah live in the studio. Hello, Sarah.
Well, classroom, obviously.
Classroom, sorry. Missed that.
I'm very grateful to be here because, oh, right, come on, sit down, please. Excuse me at the back. If you've got something to say, I suggest you share it with the class on the chat box. So welcome to the EV Café News Classroom Edition with me, Sarah Sloman, your supply teacher for the day. It's lunchtime, please pay attention. If you could turn to page 15, section 9 of your textbooks, we're going to review the headlines from the past month. Now look closely at the chart, figure EV, and you will see that the EV Café has reported a reach of over 32 countries worldwide and continues to grow its EV Café community, with the top priority being, yes, that's right, to accelerate the transition to electric vehicles in a fun and inclusive way. Excellent work. Please do continue to share and spread the word out to your networks. And 500 words on this are expected by next month. And I suggest you all take note, as failure to do so will result in a request to see John Curtis in the headmaster's office at the end of the next session. That is perhaps not a threat. Meanwhile, those who handed in your assignments last time, well done, because this will be easy for you, as you will know that we as an industry must urgently grapple with how to close this skills gap. And top of the class for Alec Peachy, who reports on news platform, transport and energy, excellent extracurricular activity there. There needs to be a boost of £15 million to play a critical role in contributing towards the training required for the 75,000 electric vehicle technicians that we need. And to put that into context, we're currently projecting 15,000. So that's quite a gap. And that is just the estimated volume of talent needed to service and repair these electric vehicles that we're expecting on our roads. And my suggestion to you all, class, would be that X Factor, Bitcoin mining might not be the highest ambition level that we need to see from our teenagers. And that's speaking from experience. And instead, please do offer work experience, shadowing, apprenticeships, and most of all, celebrate your industry and what you do to anyone who will listen, especially those younger members of your family and friendship circles. And they may look bored, and they probably will be, but you won't know how impactful your enthusiasm may be on their choices. Okay, class, we're nearly there. It's nearly break time, but before we go, I need you to refer to the sheet that I placed on your desk earlier today about Kickstart. Please read aloud with me, starting at the top, paying close attention to the figures. The £2 billion Kickstart scheme is underway, and all employers are encouraged to sign up. So what is Kickstart? It is a 6-month placement for young people, and the government will fully fund the position. The government wants employers to create job placements for 16 to 24-year-olds, and they will pay 100% of national minimum wage for 25 hours per week for 6 months. And all associated employer national insurance contributions, all employer enrollment contributions, plus all the training costs incurred by the employer will be paid. This is aimed particularly at SMEs. So please do make sure that you are doing your homework and you are deciding whether you could be offering placements for younger people, and report back to us at the EV Café. Paul Kirby, EV Essentials, the electric van man. I suspect you haven't listened to anything that we've been discussing in class today. So please make your way to the front, as the question remains, does this go far enough? Class dismissed.
Woohoo!
Excellent. And I'm so, I just had deja vu flashbacks. But usually I'm just asked to leave rather than come to the front of the class, because they just didn't dare risk me coming up to the front for what I had to say. But in this case, does it go far enough? Well, I think it really depends on whether people will take up the opportunity, right? So, businesses out there, first of all, did you know about the Kickstart campaign? Second of all, what do you think about the apprenticeships? And, my son's just taken an apprenticeship on for Mercedes-Benz, which is fantastic. I'm going to learn all about what Mercedes are teaching the youth of today around the electric transition and all that good stuff. So that's going to be really exciting. But I think it's really important, your point, Sarah. Let's hear what your view is of this Kickstart campaign. Did you know about it? Did you know it's fully funded? And please take me off Spotlight.
Spotlight is genuinely terrifying, isn't it? Your whole face fills the whole screen. Well, one of the reasons I wanted to work for Untitled is that they are incredibly forward thinking in this space. So we've currently got 4 apprentices right now, and I'm really proud of that fact, because they will make their way through the company and they're welcomed in without question of their skills or capacity to learn. So it's a nice way to just work shadowing is really critical. I would not be where I was today if it wasn't for my friend's mum saying that I could go to work with her, and I helped her with some eco schools work in Swindon Borough Council, and that not only triggered my inspiration for how local authorities can really make a difference, it actually made me speak to people, interview children, and then I went on to do my entire dissertation around behaviour change and how that can really impact the global economy, plus making sure that we're questing for sustainability at every step of the way. I've tracked it right back, and I think there's a combination of things, but my friend's mum was definitely one of them. Maybe don't comment on that, thinking back to your childhood. But it's really important that we as industry professionals are doing the same thing. So whenever your kids have their friends around, just don't be afraid to tell them what you do and things that you're excited about.
No, I agree with that. John Curtis.
Curtis, two things to say. One, can you put questions in the Q&A box?
Oh, yeah.
I live in the mail room. We've had 2 questions. I have no mail. I'm feeling unloved. Sort yourselves out, people.
3 questions, John.
3. Oh,
Yeah, you got a new one in there now.
new ones in there now. Thank you kindly. Second point is, we mentioned that WhatsApp group for Patreons. Well, let me give you an insight into the sort of rubbish that we talk about. In the picture that is spotlighted right now, we always, and I say we, I mean Sam Clark, always hides a picture of Paul Kirby. It's a hand-drawn picture of Paul Kirby, and every episode since we did Milton Keynes has had a picture of Paul Kirby, which he hates, loathes, and detests. Now, where is that picture of Paul Kirby? Can you see it on the background right now? Because it's there.
I have to say, it is not instantly recognizable as me, and should not ever be said that it was instantly recognizable as me.
Spitting image. Can anybody see it?
Oh, dear me.
I know where it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you put it there.
Can we zoom in somehow, John?
It's in the place where you would normally most kids wrong way, John.
Yeah, I know. I'm working backwards.
Darren's got it.
But Darren's in the cheat group. He's in the WhatsApp group.
Yeah.
Right. So there we are. So every single episode. So check us out on YouTube. Go back through our videos and you will find in each one a Paul Kirby that nobody has seen before. That's the sort of nonsense we get up to.
And this is absolute nonsense, isn't it?
Don't do that right now, because it's now time for us to welcome on our next guest speaker of today. It's Jim Blair from Arnold Clark. Welcome to the EV Café, Jim.
Welcome, Johnny. Good to be here. Let me just share my screen now.
We need to get a new picture for you, Jim, in the background with Paul's portrait, I think.
Can you see my screen now?
Not yet.
Not yet.
No.
Donnie, you might have to take off spotlight.
Especially since it's got Sam on it.
What?
What?
Yeah, everyone can see different things. I've got mine set to gallery view, so I see everyone as equals.
Yeah, I just go back to gallery all the time as well.
Yeah.
I just spotlight myself.
That's why you look so happy all the time.
No surprise.
No surprise.
Gazing into those lovely eyes.
Jim, your desktop of the Sahara Desert or something appeared momentarily. So
Jim Blair's done
There
his
you go.
sharing.
There we go.
Whee!
I've been looking forward to this.
Excellent.
I'm going to sit back.
Well, I'll just crack on with this because I've got 5 minutes and I suspect I might struggle time-wise, so I don't want to get told off.
Clock started.
Initially, just a quick introduction to the Arnold Clark organisation. We've been around for about 60 years. Still a family business with around 12,000 people, 193 dealerships and 26 franchises. We currently manage about 170,000 vehicles across the UK in a variety of business leases, personal leases and salary sacrifice. When we look at our fleet, the typical change frequency for business vehicles tends to be about 3 or 4 years. And that's really just a hop, skip and a jump away from 2030. So from our perspective, it's a lot closer than people think. We had a look at our numbers the other day, and I thought it'd be useful to share this with you. Overall, we're slightly ahead of the curve. 14% of our orders at the minute are for pure EV, which is quite a bit ahead of the average of 8.5%. So we're pretty pleased about that. But on the left, you can see, just to give you an idea of who's buying these vehicles. So it's very much business and public sector with a little sliver of private buyers in there. And then on the right-hand side, a very nice progression over the years of the trend. And what this is showing is the percentage of each segment where they're buying electric vehicles. So again, you can see that public sector and corporate are way out ahead of private buyers. And from our perspective, we see that sort of tying in nicely to the education piece, which we'll come on to shortly. But even though the private buyers just a little bit resistant at the minute, the direction of travel is pretty clear. Sales of battery electric vehicles are soon going to outpace diesel. We're expecting a bit of a hiccup next year, largely as a result of shortages in semiconductors, steel, rubber, which are hampering progress at the minute. But the pace of change is pretty relentless, and we are expecting that BEV will properly overtake petrol and diesel vehicles by 2025, which is good news. To support this growth, obviously, the after-sales network has to evolve as well. And we're a little bit conflicted by this because we can see it from both sides of the fence. From the leasing company perspective, our business is all about predicting the future, forecasting residual values, forecasting maintenance, and we rely on our repair network that's spread right across the UK, and we've been encouraging them to embrace EVs. But we see some problems, and largely as a result of the parts issues recently, but also labour shortages. When we look at the dealership view, we kind of understand what the problem is. You know, if you're a small dealership, it's commercially difficult to upskill your workforce, considering that the percentage of EVs is still relatively small. And of course, we've got to bear in mind that one of the advantages of EVs is that they need servicing less and less. So it's a bit of a challenge for a small dealership. And Steve Nash at the IMI was talking about this recently, and he referred to a gaping chasm. And what he was talking about was the fact that there was just a 1.5% increase in technicians last year who were qualified to work in EVs. So it's clearly an area that the industry is trying to get government attention. From our perspective, we've taken a more progressive view. We've been able to leverage our training academies in Glasgow, Edinburgh and Wolverhampton. We've been in the training business since the 60s and 70s. So again, we've been able to tap into this knowledge to move things forward. This class of 29 here, basically we bring on board about 400 apprentices each year. We had to defer it last year because of COVID, but this is just a sample of some of the class from the year before. And these days, electric vehicles is a key part of that process. So IMI level 2 and level 3 is what we're aiming for. And you'll also see on the right-hand side the EVA logo. You'll begin to see this appearing more and more. This is a National Franchise Dealers Association scheme, which is now supported by government. And again, the idea is to make sure that when consumers are buying vehicles, they're properly informed and supported. And again, I think Sarah mentioned earlier on the award that we won just last week, which we're very pleased about. So again, generally speaking, about 91% of our apprentices move on to full-time employment with us. But even so, we've taken that a little bit further by improving the apprenticeship program that we have. And for the first time, apprentices have now got some control over what they earn through performance-related financial incentives. And we've also thrown in 3 driving courses. So again, that was good to get that award last week. We're also on the road. We take our, John might actually have been in this van at some point, but we have got a couple of these that we take out to schools and colleges to try and promote not only after sales within schools, but also electric vehicles. And a couple of weeks back, we were at the AIG Women's Golf promoting electric vehicles. And I do have to tell you that it's the busiest we have ever been. And the predominant question was not so much about the cars, but it was like, tell me about this electric thing. How does it work? And again, that's part of the education piece that we think is crucially important. Sometimes we can get into a little bubble of our own and talk to each other forgetting that that bubble is not the whole world. And from our perspective, we want to convince all of these people that don't know about electric vehicles how good they are. And with that in mind, we've also recently opened our Renovation Centre in Glasgow. And the key purpose of this is to break down these barriers. Learn, charge, drive, and change is what we're trying to encourage. It's the only property that we own in the business where you can't come in and buy a car. This is all about education, taking the mystery out of electric vehicles, answering questions, busting myths, and trying to get people into an electric vehicle. Because as we all know, once you've driven one, you're very unlikely to go back the way. So I think I'm slightly over time, but hopefully that gives you a flavour of what we've been up to in the last couple of years.
I think we're all mesmerised, Jim, don't worry.
Yeah, couldn't stop you, Jim. It's too good.
What's really fabulous is how Jim has worked with us over the last few months. And we have been working on something for COP26, which we've not formally announced yet. So keep this under your hat. But we are going to be appearing at the Innovation Centre on the evening of November the 2nd at the Arnold Clark Innovation Centre to showcase electric vehicles, electric vehicle charging, renewable energy, and overcoming the myths for businesses. So essentially what we're going to do is bring along 75 or so very senior executives from businesses that are part of the ecosystem of EVs or have made the transition to EVs, along with 75 or so businesses who have yet to start that transition and yet to start that journey. And we're having a black tie, sequins and leather and fur and all sorts of fetish stuff.
Whoa, wait a minute. No, that wasn't. That wasn't.
That wasn't what we agreed.
Oh, have I gone too far?
We told you about this.
How unlike me.
Tiny bit.
How unlike me. But we're going to have a champagne and canapé reception on November the 2nd to truly showcase to the leaders of the UK at COP26 that we have this nailed. And we're so grateful to Jim for all the work that he's done and the team at the Innovation Centre to help put this on. We have 5 or 6 weeks now. Tickets will go on sale very shortly. We're having a ball putting this together. It's challenging, but we want to see you guys there being part of this, showcasing the very best of what the UK has to offer on a world stage.
I'm just going to build on that. Actually, one of the reasons it came about was that we are all going to be as involved as possible in COP26. It's important that we do that, fly the flag and all. But there just really didn't seem to be anywhere to go, to all congregate and swap notes and just to experience each other's time at the show. Well, it's not really a show, time at the session. So that's what we want to do, is welcome you all in. So please do watch this space, and we'll be announcing where you get tickets from and timings and things as the weeks wear on. There's not many weeks left.
Shall we do some questions?
Do some questions.
Right.
Sarah's got one.
Sarah, I'm going to ask you a question, Sarah. Do you have a question? Have you got your hand in the air?
Yes.
Sorry, darling, go for it.
Oh, my question for you, Jim, is about your Innovation Centre and the experience that you've had, because there's the Milton Keynes one that's done really well for vehicle sales and being able to let people try before they buy. And of course, as we know, as soon as you drive that thing, you're going to love the experience and want to be part of the electrical revolution. But you're right, there's still so many people that don't have the right information, don't feel they want to take the plunge. What's the proportion like, do you think, that come through the Innovation Centre doors? And that's curious because, of course, they're probably only there because they're already on that change curve of wanting to know. But of the people that walk through the door, how many do you think are naysayers that you have to convert, and how many are already EV curious?
I think the majority are probably already curious about EVs, but they simply don't know enough about them. So we've got a fantastic team. I don't think I've met a team of people who are quite so enthusiastic, apart from the EV crew, obviously.
Yeah.
But you'll get to meet them shortly, and they're a great bunch of people. But I think most people who walk in the door, we've only been open for a few months now. It was by appointment only, but now you can effectively drop in anytime you like. And most folk who come in have seen an advert, heard something about EVs, and they want to come in and find out a little bit more. So I guess they've taken the first tentative steps on the journey. The great thing about things like the golf event that we did is we're taking the message out there. And I think that's equally important. People are off doing something else, and we kind of thrust ourselves into their day and make them aware of something that perhaps they weren't aware of before. So we think both have got a role to play.
Fantastic work. Keep it up. Can't wait to see the centre.
Look forward to it.
Question from Scott Eady. And I think, Sarah, you might be actually quite capable of answering this one. What do you think about the new rule for all new build properties, private homes, to be fitted with a charging point?
Okay, so obviously Amtronic specialise in home charge, as does our sponsor My Energy. However, there was an evidence base pulled together in 2019 between a consultancy called Sistra, us, Go Ultra Low, South Gloucestershire Council and the West of England Partnership. And this was all about, way before this was ever suggested to become a policy, this is about introducing an idea of planning policy for electric vehicles in all new developments, so commercial and home. And we were very nervous, actually, about suggesting that every single new build should be fitted. And this roots back to the transport hierarchy. So if you build a house and put a charge point on it, you're already taking up quite a lot of landmass there for a driveway. Now, bear with me here, because if we're thinking carefully about future transport and where we're trying to go with mobility hubs and reverting back to an interconnected transport system and using private cars in the mix rather than the default, we end up in a situation where every homeowner has at least one electric vehicle, hopefully two, if they're going to have two cars at all. Instead, could local authorities not be thinking more carefully about transport as a hub-based model? So could developers, instead of having to fund a charge point in every single home, which, by the way, they pass that cost on to the homeowner, which, by the way, the homeowner has no choice over what that charge point necessarily is. So I feel for the consumer a little bit here, because they wouldn't be aware of the alternatives that could be available to them through planning policy. So we're looking forward to unpacking this at Grand Designs Live. It's a great question. I think on the whole, it's fantastic that OZEV have supported so many homes in getting chargers, and we're going to see this through to March 2022. And Chantel Gray from Amtronic, she pulled together a list of what this really truly means. So I'll put that in the chat. But I think the headline is, if you're buying a new build and you're lucky enough to do that, you're going to get a charger on your home. You're not going to get a choice of what that charger actually is or what it does. You're not going to get a say in whether you can future-proof it. You're not going to know whether it can benefit from vehicle to grid or vehicle to home or any of the other exciting technologies coming forward. So I'm a little bit nervous about it, but I'm hoping that us and a group like this can make sure that we're slightly influencing that policy, making sure that the homeowner is still in charge. They are the consumer after all. So we shall watch this space, but it's great for clean air. Lots more electric vehicles will be by default encouraged, in the same way that solar panels are being built into homes as well. So as long as it's an integrated solution where the consumer can still have choice and the local authority feels they've got that control over planning policy for the wider decarbonisation transport piece, then I think it's got to be good news.
Well, there we are. That's a complete answer if ever you wanted one.
Holistic, always.
That is a damn good answer, because I now know significantly more than I did 2 minutes ago about the whole thing. So thank you for that.
Let's be honest, not difficult.
Well, that's true.
If you want the massive document, I'll put that in the chat as well.
I'd rather have your answers, to be honest. So around
Okay,
that, Sass, I got a question as a result of your amazing answer. Is what is the current situation with what is intended to be installed? Like, is it smart? Is it dumb? Is it a certain OCPP compliance, or is there any metrics or appraisal of what they are?
Yeah, we're assured it's going to have the minimum compliance. So I skeptically say we as consumers won't be able to take advantage of these amazing technologies. But when you think about the budget that's going to be applied to that charger, I can't imagine it being one of the hyper intelligent ones and the hyper security ones. I'd love to see more on that. And I think as a group, collectively, as the EV Café community, we should be jotting these questions down. Like some people in the chat right now, I'd love to hear your thoughts, and I'd happily take the lead on that, because it's really important to me that the homeowner/consumer is aware of this, and when they're purchasing that home, they don't end up with something they're never going to use and end up ripping out, because that's ultimately really unsustainable in itself. Yeah. But the minimum terms are available. I'd have to delve pretty deep to find them, but I'll do that. I'll find out.
That definitely needs exploring, because the level of smartness, at the very least, in terms of time of use, not just for the benefit of time of use tariffs, but just to be able to spread energy in the places when we're all asleep, is absolutely vital. Otherwise, we're just going to tee ourselves up for a bigger fall, aren't we?
And last week, didn't they say as well that there's going to be controlled kind of restriction on power being delivered to the home capped at 9 hours. And that's no bad thing. It's been going on for ages anyway, if anyone has air conditioning units or other stuff, but you just don't see it because we weren't aware as consumers. We didn't have smart meters, so we couldn't see the power going in and out and up and down. And I'm not bothered about it, to be honest, but I'm lucky enough to have a home charge. I barely use it. I think I use my home charge about once or twice a month because I'm out and about on the road so much. For me, it's that balance of destination, public and home. So flexible smart tariffs is the only way to truly decarbonise and support the grid and achieve all of our aims. So yeah, I think it's a really good advanced way of communicating with the public, saying new homes will have maybe solar array and EV chargers. That would be good. But I myself would feel insecure that I don't know what that charge is going to be.
I think it's important in that whole mix because obviously from a commercial vehicle perspective, any sort of downtime of the ability to charge would be very detrimental because obviously we don't always work to a typical home schedule plug-in at 5 o'clock or whatever, you know. So I think it does need there needs clarity on these kinds of announcements, you know, that make a headline. You know, we're going to shut the grid off for 9 hours. You know, let's not go for the glory grabbing headline. Let's inform, and I think that's what we're here for, right? Isn't it? Get the actual facts and put them out there, which is great, Sarah, that you're there. But I think the commercial vehicle piece needs to be thought through as well, and make sure that we're not going to be draining the grid or stopping the grid at the wrong times.
There is more to it. There is going to still be that consumer control. I think the Electric Nation project showed us that consumers do want to have at least a minimum parameter where they say at any do what you like with my car, but at any one stage I'm going to need 50 miles remaining on the battery, thank you very much. And that can be incentivized even through basic consumer behavior like discounts on coffee or £5 off your bill next month, whatever it turns out to be. I think as long as we keep the consumer behavior in mind, I think it could be a success and take away a lot of the headaches and worries around converting to EV.
Question for Jim. Are you there, Jim?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Cool. Rhiannon Evans, we have spoken about Rhiannon before. She says the main problem that she's finding with electric cars is that they're expensive, but the trim finish inside the vehicles is not what you'd expect. And it feels like the company car is cutting corners, that they're cutting corners to provide vehicles for companies that are relatively poorly trimmed out and charging the user through the nose for buying electric. Is that right?
I would have said it was the opposite way around, to be fair. I think my experience of electric vehicles is that they tend to be pretty high spec inside compared to their equivalent petrol or diesel vehicle. I think what she might be referring to is some of the shortages at the minute. Manufacturers are cutting corners. So we've got situations just now where cars are being delivered with one key because the manufacturer doesn't have enough semiconductors to make two keys. So rather than hold the vehicles back, they'll deliver with one key, and then perhaps in a year you'll get your second key. We've got other manufacturers installing different entertainment systems, downgrading because they can't get the systems for the full spec vehicles. So there's a bit of that going on just now, but that's very much a temporary thing. I think generally speaking, EVs generally are pretty highly spec vehicles.
Certainly true of the van sector, Jim, particularly. I think, you know, you can buy a basic diesel van, but you can't buy a basic electric van, you know. So it's
definitely true of the car market as well. And it's something that Rob Llewellyn for Fully Charged has raised on many occasions around the fact that a lot of the vehicles that come out are a top spec with all the bells and whistles on them with an EV, which is not what people necessarily want. And it distances sales away from EVs when perhaps some of these manufacturers may be trying to push through a few more petrol and diesel cars just now, which may be the case, maybe it isn't, but it's definitely the case that we need a broad spectrum of options on these EVs, so people don't have to pay through the nose for kit they don't need or don't want.
I guess that goes for charging as well. Daryl Sharp points out that it would be really handy if there was like low cost entry level options for charging, as well as ones with all the bells and whistles. And I think to a certain extent that does exist. Would I be right, Sarah?
Well, I wasn't listening, so.
Well, we caught you out, madam.
Robbie's chat box monitor. I am monitoring the chat box. I'm writing notes. I'll be doing the links, including all the links. So I'm sorry.
I'll answer it, John, if you like. There's definitely a broad range of different charging providers out there with different levels of smartness, and that that in its own right is a challenge, because we're all trying to get our head around EVs, and we now got to get our head around all the different variants and the compliances and everything else that relate to each hardware unit as well. So that's not to be underestimated in terms of. I was going to say educate then, and I stopped myself because the other day we were having an education day at Braintree, and we changed the name. So that makes people think. I know we're in a classroom today, but nonetheless, we've changed it to Awareness Day, because I think awareness, informing, that kind of wording is what we should probably be using, and not educate, 'cause it's almost patronizing. So I think that, again, I've gone on a bit of a tangent there, but I think to answer your question, there's loads of different variables that we've also got to help inform and make people aware of, so that everyone understands exactly what it is that they're buying.
Absolutely love awareness. What a great word. And also, I would say reliable hardware, flexible software. That's what you need to be procuring.
Yeah, we absolutely love people who pay attention. Now beat it.
Isn't it ironic that the teacher wasn't listening?
Yes. That's what I always used to point out when the teacher was telling me to shut up at very high volume. I said, listen, it's you that's disturbing the class, not me.
I was actually just graffitiing in the desk with "I love the EV Café crew."
Speaking of awareness, no one's aware that I've got my hands up for the last 30 seconds.
Johnny Berry, you want to say something?
Yeah.
Sorry, we were being funny.
To you, John. We'll go to the next guest speaker, shall we? I just want to say great stuff. Great to hear from you, Jim. I love the Innovation Centre. Love the idea of it all. We all can't wait for the show later this year. But please do stick around for any questions that might come up later on in the show. We are starting to see some great questions. We will answer them shortly. But now it's time to welcome our next guest speaker, Pat Skelly, the CEO from ProGreen, who will tell us what they are doing for apprentices and training. So welcome to the cafe, Pat. I hope you've been enjoying the show so far.
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely exhilarating conversation, in fairness, and some good comments made, and lots of interesting topics to get into, of course. But I think from my point of view, my world is in the commercial sector. In fairness, we do cars, but primarily it's in the commercial sector, and so light van through to heavy trucks, and we're involved in all aspects of that, including from battery electric vehicle into hydrogen or fuel cell. So it's training is a massively important part of what we do.
Shall I put your deck on?
I was going to say, Paul, that'd be great if you could. I've enlisted the help of Paul in this today, as it's not in my main skill set. So I do appreciate the
In fairness, it's not in his either.
He's certainly better than I am.
Damn, I thought I'd got away with that.
You could have chosen anybody else.
I have to say, right at this end, I mean, to be honest, this has been a great bit of time spent for me. It's the first time I've connected with you guys, and you're doing some amazing work, having a conversation about which is a massive topic for a lot of people. And that's fine. I mean, work away, keep me on track. I mean,
yeah, get on with it, Pat.
Get on with it, absolutely. So who ProGreen? ProGreen are a part of a contract hire division. I mean, Prohire is the group that I'm CEO of, and ProGreen is I guess one of my foibles. It started off that way anyway, and I've been working in the EV sector now for first vehicles I put on the road was 2006. And when we move on to where we are today in 2021, the commercial world has come along a long way. So we offer advice and free content, a conversation, and a helping hand to take you from your diesel vehicles of today into the technology of tomorrow. But of course, in that in itself leads the challenges that we've all spoken about today, and in great detail. And if we look at the pages going on, I think from my perspective is how we move into tomorrow. And tomorrow is going to be about how we fix these vehicles and how we educate people and how we're going to use them. I suppose that the part for me with all of this is back to our training conversation we said before. The world is going to be very short of people. The world is going to be very short of technicians, and it is now. We've got technicians in the diesel world that are leaving to be drivers. So it's a very, very serious problem that we've all got. But so alternative fuel for us, is massive in our business now, and we spend probably about 25% of our entire business time talking to companies and helping them get to where they need to be. You know, I've seen some people there talking about EO charger, not EO charger, but it's all about charges. It's all about conversation. It's all about helping hand. Paul, the next one, please.
Sure. Oh, thanks.
Told you, we did warn you.
Shush.
I guess well, listen, he's better than me, so we'll work on. I guess from my concept with this, it's trying to keep everything to 5 minutes. It's normally a 2 or 3 hour conversation. So from a single source of expertise, really, I mean, with the companies we're talking to, and we've spoken to about 150 this year in our world, where we're trying to bring to life what can be done and how we take it further for you. So whether it's from electric surveys into battery charging, we service the battery charger, the chargers as well. We're working with Neon at the moment on lithium-ion chargers as well. So getting that chargers in the ground, getting the vehicles on the ground, working with you to get where you need to be. But the biggest challenge with a lot of this stuff, and we've touched on it before, 2 points. One, how we get on and make it work today, which the larger companies are doing at scale, and where the smaller companies and the individuals are going to work for the future. So there's 2 parts from here. So secondary leasing in our business is forming a big part of what we're doing for the primary leasing world, where we can bring people into this that can't afford £65,000 for a panel van, and clearly there are a lot of people in that space. We've also developed an EV training centre, and that goes live at the largest version of that goes live at the end of next year, but the smaller version starts in the 1st of October, which is all about bringing people to life, or bringing this to life for people, and bringing both our customers in and internal and external training. All of our standard technicians have been trained to EV level, E level 3. We're also going through a process at the moment where our operations centre staff are also going to the EV level 3 as well. Next year, we're going to high power, so 4 and 5 combined, as you know, where we're working into that place as well. And we've already got courses booked in that space as well now to bring on to the bigger piece of this conversation is battery technology, how we integrate with the batteries and the high power side of the electric vehicles, which is super important. I guess the interesting bit for us is apprentices. Now, I've been working in that space for a long time. In my previous company, we didn't have an apprentice scheme, and when I left, we had 35 apprentices per year through our system. We've started with our first EV guy apprentice. We tried to get 5. We managed to get 1, and that's the problem. Trying to bring people into that space. So our first apprentice started on the 1st of September, and we are still actively looking to how we manage and push forward and get more people on the ground and more people interested, which is a real problem for us. Being able to service, control and repair vehicles remotely now is going to be a super part of the world that we're living in. So connected vehicles in the commercial space is huge. Interestingly, you mentioned Geotab a lot. I mean, I've been working with Level and Geotab for a number of years now in this space. And all of our EV fleet that's on the ground at the moment is fully connected. So we're trying to predict when problems arise. And we're also working on a program now for on-site servicing for all the vehicles. So we already talk about range and range anxiety, and it's a real problem for a lot of people. So moving that vehicle after you've had 100 miles of range and you've done a 90-mile day to a service repairer who may or not be technically able to do it, but also at a point where you simply can't get there on the range you've got, and you may lose that vehicle for the next day. So a lot of conversation around here is about uptime. Our training is absolutely from the very basic training for individuals who want to talk about it, so driver training, operational training for the people who are operating these vehicles day to day, right the way through to vehicle derogation training. So we're looking at license training to go to 4.2 tons on the light vehicles to give you the payloads that you require to make these vehicles work. We talk about range optimization. We talk about people who have done an amazing journey. I mean, who knew? I was with Paul actually at the TCS&D last week, and I managed to get to Manchester and back on a single charge, which who knew? It was the first time for me to I thought, well, I wasn't going to make it, so I'm 350 miles or so on a single charge. So I was really pleased with that. So it's about that education of the driver. It's education of everybody involved in this piece, and it's scary for a lot of people. And we talk about getting people on board. The manufacturers are absolutely making diesel vehicles, because that's what they've always done. They have got no choice but make electric vehicles. But right now they're making diesel vehicles because they're going to sell them. Let's be honest. And it's up to us to educate as many people. And this forum is brilliant to be able to talk that through. And there are so many ways of getting into this that actually it's quite exciting to even have the conversation today. So I talk about this every day. And to speak to like-minded people about the same kind of thing is exciting to me. So I'm really pleased about that. What else we've got that phone in? We normally have about 150 slides to look at. So you guys are into videos, of course. We've been doing our own Prohire TV thing for quite some time now, and we've had a hiatus for a couple of months for a number of reasons, and one of them building a new training centre, and plus also Michelle, who you see there, is now head of programming, and she was head of marketing. So we've now got some new guys on board to help us and do some more videos, but also we take it into the technical side. We want to do far more technical stuff, and also opening batteries up for the first time, and to give people insight of what's in a battery, because we talk about used vehicle sales, we talk about used car vehicle sales, like commercial vehicle sales. The scary part for everyone won't be the cost of ownership or even funding it. It'll be what happens if my battery fails, and the horror stories of £20,000 for a battery pack. Well, these are the things that we're working on right now to show people how we're going to do that, and also to help with the secondary leasing side, where we will take on that risk ourselves and help people get to where they need to be. So it's really important to really get under the skin of this kind of thing. And I guess to a certain degree, I only had 5 minutes. I don't know how well I did or didn't do, but I do apologise if it seemed rushed. But normally, I did one last week for a very large company, which took 4 hours. So so to condense what we do into 5 minutes is quite difficult for me. So I do apologise.
Done a great job, Pat.
You'd have made 5 minutes if it wasn't for the poor slide turning.
Listen. I had to work with the presenter. I couldn't see him because of the.
Listen, fantastic, Paul. Amazing job. Thank you very much for your help.
Thank you, Pat.
Yeah, you've set the bar low there, Paul. Thanks, mate.
Cheers, buddy.
Shall we go to some questions? Is that all right? Yes. Are we going to get everybody? Are we getting everybody back on?
Can I?
Yeah.
I have a question that struck me from Pat's presentation, and it was on the ability to get people, because I was talking to a company yesterday. They're going to get 350 apprentices for generator and substations and all of those kinds of things. There's a lot of people competing for this same space. How do we make it sexy?
Absolutely, it's very difficult, and I think when you look at the world we live in today, especially the commercial vehicle world, diesel vehicles and dirt and oil and grease and all of those things are what people think about when you look at a vehicle technician. But of course, when you look at EV, of course, it's very different. You've only got to go to a rival and look at the conditions you're now working with electric vehicles. So it's a very different world. So we have got to work very hard with the younger people. We speak about this in two very different sectors. So it's almost surgeon and doctor kind of territory when you look at the cleanliness of we have to work with electric vehicles, and we have to really work with people at that mindset and go and talk to them. And some of the things like this is schools. We're building at the moment a mobile training centre, so we're going round to talk to people about how this can be a serious career option. So not unlike Jim, of course, but in a different space. So I'm totally in a commercial vehicle. We do cars because of electric. Why wouldn't you? But we've also I'm back at Peterborough next week at the lifting show. We've got our 27-ton Iconic electric on there, which is the first one of its type in the UK, which is a beaver tail with a winch on it. So we work right through that spectrum when it comes to EV, to get people to understand that this is going to be one of the most amazing career choices that they can make, and it's the future of where we are is very hard. And when you talk about EV as such, people are still very scared, or I think skeptical, not so much anymore. But there are other options in the UK where they can go and earn, money and do different things, and it's all funky and all sexy. And we could talk about this. And the panel here today, it's great talking about it, fixing these vehicles and generating that skill set for the future is it's so hard. We try very hard to get 5 apprentices and manage to get 1 to turn up. So we're very hopeful that the one that's turned up wants to learn, but it's very hard.
Sarah's got a question.
Absolutely.
It'll be really, really quick, and it's for you, Pat. So I was speaking to Man Trucks at the weekend, just hearing about the fact that they've got a problem. They take people on as technicians, and then very quickly those technicians want to get off the tools and become drivers because the working conditions are better. How do we make being on the tools better?
I think there's 2 things with this, of course. I mean, it's very difficult. The salaries that are being generated for drivers at the moment is in my opinion, it's a hinterland between 2 things. I mean, we have a massive problem for drivers in the UK at the moment. We're 100,000 drivers short, so therefore commodity drives demand. So if you've got HGV or Class 1 drivers at the moment, £150,000 a year, an average salary for a technician in the UK is about 35,000. So what would you do? The challenge around this is you also can't afford to suddenly pay £100 an hour. So if you take your ID4, we have ID4s, I'll tell you, take it in, it's £100 an hour. Commercial vehicle repairs are very, very conscious of cost. So to get in that space, we've really got to do something very different. And it's going to come from the younger people that are going to want to join, and we want to make it sexy and we want to do things. And I'm not talking about beanbags and free sandwiches and that kind of thing. It's far different than that. It's the training, but it's also taking them on that journey. You guys spend all your time taking your customers and clients and also listen to you on a journey. Yeah, but we don't take the time to take the people who are going to do this job on that same journey with us. And I think that's going to be the real key for it. The other bit, on the other side of that hinterland, I think as we move into the next 2 or 3 years, it will even out. So there'll be a lot more driver licensing opening up. They've already removed some of the restrictions on how truck drivers will be able to get into the space. So that will actually move out. One of the great things about what we're going to do is, people haven't thought about this yet, is the world of transport will change dramatically over the next 4 to 5 years. And certainly by 2025. 2025 is going to be a massive cutoff for so many commercial vehicles in that space because of legislation from world pollution and also the restrictions that are going to put on manufacturers removing their CO2. But the companies that are taking EV on and FCEV on, so all right, fuel cell and battery electric, are going to have to change the way they operate. And by changing the way they operate, is going to change the requirements. So this is a whole topic. There's a massive question, Sarah. I mean, and I think I'd love to get into it in great detail, but I'm also conscious of time as well. But it's a big question, hard to do, but it starts with bringing the people with the journey on with you.
And that's exactly why we wanted you on the show. So thank you ever so much for going through all of that for us. And the conversation doesn't end on our monthly webinars. We do live events, and also our webpage is where we can chat as well.
Yes,
John, the Q&A, have we got any other Q&A stuff?
Oh man, have we got questions? Jim, pin back your logos, my dear friend. Other than training and charge points, this is from Ross Palman. Other than training and charge points, what other specialist equipment, if any, have Arnold Clark needed to purchase to service and maintain EVs?
I can't give you an answer to that, to be perfectly honest, John, but I do know that we invest a lot in garage equipment, cables, software. Some of it sponsored by the franchise, but we also have a lot of independent workshops as well, where we basically buy it ourselves. So yeah, you're right. You've always got to keep up to date with the latest diagnostic equipment. Everything is now digital as opposed to analog previously. So there's a lot of Wi-Fi, Bluetooth type equipment that we've invested in workshops. So yeah, that goes hand in hand with having the right people, but you've also got to have the equipment. Modern cars are completely different from where they were 20 years ago.
A lot of insulated spanners, I presume.
Yeah, and a lot of safety is the key thing. I think if you talk to somebody like Dean Hedger, they are all over this as well, and it's important that the first course is a safety course in working on electric vehicles before you get into the technical aspects of taking them apart.
What I've seen as I've been in and out of some of the workshops is rubberized flooring, segregated areas. They're having to build areas that are completely separate from the rest, floor markings. There's a lot that's going in, and it's additional investment. And John, were you going to mention the question from Sarah?
No,
Sarah.
I was going to wonder whether your rubber flooring was in the red room that you've got. Sarah Gray. Sarah Gray's posed a question, which is, do you think technicians should be charging more to service EVs due to the additional training investment required? IMI L3 and 4 is a huge investment, but necessary to safely maintain EVs. Will end users end up paying more? What do you think, Jim?
No, I don't see that happening, really. I think somehow government has to support the transition, because it's not just bringing on 400 apprentices for us each year. It's your time served technicians who perhaps have never touched an EV. So these guys have got to be trained as well. So it's a monumental task that somehow government has to find a way to support the motor industry. We can't do it ourselves. But once everybody's trained, I think it's fair to say that whatever the labour rate is should apply to ICE vehicles as much as it does to EVs. I'm not in favour of a split charging system. I think that would just be confusing.
Yeah, agreed. Paul?
Well, so we've got a difficult situation. Dealers, companies that are providing maintenance up and down the country are going to see a steady decline in the amount of vehicle time that they're going to spend. And of course, labour hours is where they make their money. But labour hours is what is decreasing. So according to British Gas, 60% less maintenance required on their EV fleet. DPD, 0 breakdowns in the last year on electric vehicles. What we're experiencing is a much more reliable vehicle, therefore much lower maintenance costs. So I don't know whether it will repeat into the truck sector. It may not. I don't know what Pat's experience is, but it certainly seems as there's going to be a different structure coming into play and a different way of making money from servicing the vehicles. And maybe the labour cost will have to go up because you are specialising or doing things, because they've got to still stay afloat, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right, but we've seen that over the last 20 years as well. The cars just get better and better and better. They need less time to look after them. They're stronger than they've ever been. So that's not really any different for the industry, but the type of work that we'll be doing will change. And as much as one of the strengths of electric vehicles is they absolutely need less maintenance than an ICE vehicle, there's less moving parts. There's also a lot more electronics in an electric vehicle that needs a bit more attention. When a vehicle is involved in an accident, I think you'll find that repair rates are absolutely going to go through the roof, because it's a much more complex machine now. So when you have a road traffic accident, your body shop repairs, not so much labour rates are going to increase, but the value of the repairs themselves are likely to increase. So there's a bit of pros and cons with EV, but generally speaking, you're right. They'll spend less time off the road, which is fantastic. When they are off the road, the repair bill might be a bit higher because of the electronics as opposed to the engineering.
What about you, Pat?
Yeah, I think there's two things with that. On the commercial side, certainly, as opposed to cars, what we're trying to do is have a fully connected fleet, and we do it through Geotab in this particular instance. We're catching stuff before it becomes a problem now. If you look at the light commercial dealerships across the UK, the problem actually isn't getting something repaired, it's getting it into the dealer. So we've got a point now where if you look at, say, Vauxhall or whatever, or Mavanos or these kind of things, it's 2 and 3 weeks to get it into a dealer, even for warranty work, because they've got so much on. So we've got a lack of technicians. We've got the conversation with Sarah for how we keep technicians. So actually some of these places are going to become very different, the way that they operate for the future, and it's going to be very much more clinical. But we're monitoring and managing fleets now, our electric fleet certainly, which is growing by the day. through telematics and into the main body of the vehicle, and also connecting to the ancillary equipment. So our technicians are going to be, hopefully, and the point is that we can do multi-stage repairs, so we can cut out some of the other costs. So if we've got refrigerated electric vans, which we have at the moment, so I want the guy to go out with his spanners, and his new laptop and all the rest of it, and his white suit on, but then fix the electric vehicle and the fridge, all the tail lift, all the bits and pieces on there. So try and control that and condense it to add value for the client, and also to add value for me too, personally. Obviously, it makes sense to try and do it once, touch it once, and not a number of times.
Exactly. And what this says is that we are not going through a limited change, we are going through a wholesale change. And I think that's what people need to get their heads around. It's a completely different world that we're in. Sorry, Johnny, did you want to say something?
That's all right. I'm just saying, I'm really sorry, but that's all we have time for today.
I told you, the
We're on half past. We need to wrap up. So, Norman, we'll get back to you on the Q&A. But I just want to say thanks for listening, everybody. Thanks to special guests, and more importantly, if you aren't registered for October's session, then go do it. Watch out for the recording. We can carry on this conversation for hours, I'm sure. Let's do some of that on LinkedIn, on our page. Any final words from the team before we say goodbye?
I've got a quick one. I want to wish something a happy birthday. Simon Brace, a massive fan of our show, messaged earlier. Today is exactly 4 years since Lake's electric vehicle delivery service officially went live. Thousands of 0 miles driven and tons of CO2 and NOx saved. And given I used to own an electric vehicle delivery company too, I could not mention that. So well done, Simon. Keep up the good work.
Top man.
Happy birthday.
Top man, Sam.
Or you're going to sing us happy birthday then, Sam.
But we know what happens when we start singing on this show. Everything goes really wrong. So.
Any final words from John?
Just, I'm staggered by the amount of commitment that Arnold Clark has shown and Pro Green show. It never fails to amaze me how good we are at things, but how much more we still have to do. So we need to engage with our young people. They get it. They absolutely get it. We've got to make it worth their while, both financially and in terms of the terms and conditions that they enjoy as part of this environment. Working with EVs should be seen as almost like being a rocket scientist.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks, John. Final words from Sarah, then straight after we'll have final words from Paul in that order.
Thanks, mate.
I'm just going to say, World EVD may be over, but this has been a kickstart for me. I think we should spend the next few months out and about on the road as much as possible, meeting as many people as we can, just to do the awareness, not education piece. That's my takeaway from today.
Yeah.
So for me, this is such an exciting world. I get to see it from the inside with my son doing the apprenticeship. So that's fantastic. So I'll be reporting back as he learns. And the other thing, thanks, Johnny, is don't forget November the 2nd, a great chance to network, come and see the Arnold Clark Innovation Centre, get some imagination for yourself to maybe create your own innovation centres up and down the country, and come and join, network. It will be fantastic. Details to follow.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Take care, you lot.
Bye. Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Take care.
Guys.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Pat.
Oh, best questions. Hang on.
Oh, hang on.
Hang on.
Say hang on.
Quick, everyone's going now, John.
I know. Rhiannon Evans.
We can tell them. It's fine. We'll get
best question. Rhiannon Evans about charging and not having a drive. That's the sort of question we need, because that's one of those perpetual myths. You can't have an EV and charge it if you live without an off-road parking space. Rubbish. And it can be done. Rhiannon Evans, mugs on its way.
Oh, that's 2 mugs then.
Left,
James and Rhiannon. Okay, great. 2 mugs in the post.
All right, cheers.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you, darlings. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, Julian's mum.